The brick has finally come to World of Warships Legends in the form of the legendary tier battleship USS Vermont. Today, I want to talk about it. We'll run down the stats. I'll tell you how it plays, whether I think it's worth pursuing. Short answer is yes. I put up a video of the Vermont on World of Warships PC last week to sort of give you an idea of what to expect, and I'm happy to report that the Vermont they gave us is more or less a one-for-one translation of what you can get on PC. Obviously, there are some differences, like the fact that the concealment is not as good as what you can get on PC. The reload is actually better, and of course, the main gun battery range is far reduced because that's how it works in World of Warships Legends. We'll talk a little bit more in detail on that, but first I want to run down the stats. And before I get to talking about the survivability, I should note that this battle is not probably going to be the highest damage battle you've ever seen. I think we're going to do around 160k, and we're going to get somewhere around 2200 base XP. I think the ship is capable of more, but the reason I wanted to use this video or this footage to review it is because of how much HP we lose early on. More on that in a little bit, but to start off with, we do enjoy 102,800 HP. I think that makes this the battleship with the most HP at legendary tier. And you might think, oh, that means this ship has good survivability. Well, not really. We'll get to that in a second, though, as the things start to develop in this game. We also enjoy 40% torpedo damage reduction on the Vermont, which is good, approaching some of the best torpedo damage reduction in the game. I think the Alabama at tier 7 has something like 46%, and Yamato has closer over to 50. Still, though, 40% is pretty good, but you don't really want to be taking torpedoes in this thing. As for the guns, as we watch our first salvo against the Schlieffen out there to middling results, well, these are 12 457 millimeter or 18-inch guns. They can overmatch 30 millimeters of armor plating, which can come in handy if you find yourself facing off against the likes of Zhao or Yoshino, or some of those cruisers at the legendary tier, which do have 30 millimeter plating. Even the Alaska out there, by the way, I think has 28 millimeter side armor, which 16-inch guns cannot penetrate, but which these guns will overmatch. So this can do quite a bit of damage to things like Alaska. And, well, right there, another middling salvo, but we're going to get some good ones in this game. The guns range out to 19.2 kilometers with my commander build. I'll put that on the screen in a moment. It is Azerlane, New Jersey. The reload time on these guns is 36 seconds, which is a nice buff compared to the 40 that you have to wait on PC. And the 180-degree turn time is a reasonably snappy 30 seconds with this build. I think we're buffing that a little bit with one of the commander skills. It might be like 45 seconds base. Maximum AP shell damage, also nerfed from what you can get on PC, 14,200. You can, of course, buff that by using Azerlane, New Jersey, or if you wanted to, you could run gyrating drill bits on the commander. I'm not, because gyrating drill bits does cut down the speed by 10%, and this thing is already slow, as we'll discuss in a moment. But these guns can absolutely rip things apart when you land a good salvo on somebody's broadside, even if they do less maximum damage per citadel than what they do on PC. I mean, out there, that was not a citadel, but we did hit the Ohio for 15k as he was slightly turning out, so you can sort of get a taste of that. But now we are about to take some real punishment from all the enemy ships here, and you're going to see just how quickly our 102,000 HP evaporates under focus fire. Right now, there are, I think, 4 ships parked behind that alpha cap, none of which we can see, because our destroyer is on the other side of the map, having secured Delta. And we certainly don't want to push in here with our face, because we will die if we attempt to. Now, 102,000 HP, that's a lot of HP, and the armor on this thing, if we want to take a look at that, is pretty good. As you can see, it's got a 32 millimeter bow plating, but the torpedo protection, the torpedo blister, bulge, whatever you want to call it, is 38 millimeters of plating. The upper belt armor is 51. The citadel belt is something like 406 millimeters, I think. And then the deck armor is 30 millimeters. So that's a lot of good values on the armor. Certainly you can possibly ricochet even the likes of Yamato shells, which cannot be said for every battleship at this tier or at tier 8. But at the same time, oh, and also, of course, that 51 millimeter plating, 30 millimeter deck, 38 millimeter torpedo side, that will shatter quite a bit of HE. But at the same time, you have a gigantic superstructure. This thing is massive. It's thick, as they say. And you can see from all of the shells that were hitting us earlier that there's a bunch of flat surfaces all over the ship that are excellent for catching shells, making sure they arm, and then making sure they do a lot of damage to you. Plus your superstructure, it's just a huge target, and fires. Fires, of course, do 0.3% of your ship's entire HP in damage per second. So the higher your HP is, the more damage you take from fires. It's actually kind of a liability in that sense. So this ship can lose all of its HP in very short order. I mean, we just sat there facing away from 4 ships for a couple of seconds. We went from about full health to about 1/3 health. This is not going to be a very tanky ship. If I attempted to push it straight in to this armada of reds over here, I would simply be melted and sunk in very short order. So, yeah. AA defenses, it's got an aggregate rating of 91, whatever that means. I haven't run into any CVs. This thing can probably shoot down a couple of planes, but I doubt it's going to be enough to stop any kind of strikes from the legendary tier CVs we have in the game. So there's that. The maneuverability is the real low light on this ship. It has a 24.5 knot speed if you run the speed flag on the ship. Otherwise, I think it's 23.5 knots, which effectively means if you are maneuvering, it's more like 20 knots. And that means you've got to be careful about where you place this ship on the map. If you push in and overextend, there's absolutely no way you're retreating. You're just going to get melted. Everything is faster than you. By the same token, if you put yourself too far away from the action, it's going to take you a long time to get there. So, placing this ship on the map is much like placing any of the other standard American battleships at lower tiers. The difference here is that this is legendary tier where everything has the highest firepower in the game and lots of good speed. By the way, there's a good hit on the Ohio that really sort of shows you or gives you an indication of the magic of these guns. They are quite good. The turning circle on the ship is 850 meters, which I think is reasonably tight for a ship this size. And the rudder shift is 19.1 seconds, which is not very fast, but honestly, you don't really feel it. Well, maybe you kind of do. I might actually want to go with the rudder shift mod or do something to buff that, because the Vermont actually does accelerate quite quickly. It takes forever for some reason to slow down and come to a stop, but it accelerates quickly, even though it's not accelerating to a very high top speed. And because of the tight turning circle, it is fairly maneuverable, much like those big, bulky American battleships at low tier. Same story here. And that means you can dodge a good deal of torpedoes, for example, provided that you know they're coming. It's easy to turn out of their way and weave through them with a ship that is this maneuverable in battleship terms. But at the same time, it's very slow. So you got to be careful. As for the concealment, well, we do have the concealment module, and we've got Kondo as one of the inspirations. So the concealment is reduced to 13 kilometers by sea, which is honestly quite the nerf for the ship in translation. I can get the concealment down to 12.6 km on WoW's PC, only 13 here. Now that's fine. I think the concealment it has on PC is actually ridiculous, and there's probably no reason it should have that. But at the same time, when you've got a ship that's this big and this slow, the extra concealment would be nice. It allows you to approach the action a little bit closer without being spotted and shot. It allows you to disengage maybe a little bit easier, but 13 kilometers is perfectly serviceable. So, what is the ship? Well, basically, it's the fantasy of what would happen if you took the sort of design philosophy for the standard American dreadnought style battleships, like the New Mexico or the Colorado, California, those kind of things. And then you brought it to its final Super Saiyan form with the second biggest guns in the game and 12 of them to boot. It's basically like that. It is a standard American battleship dreadnought style thing, and it plays like one. It's just that the guns here are excellent. They can maintain their penetration at range. They can do filthy things when you get some good salvos to land. Now, we didn't see any really big knockout, blowout salvos in this game, but the guns here are definitely the highlight. They are some of the most consistent and accurate battleship guns in the game. Obviously, they're not going to be pinpoint perfect every time, and dispersion will still troll you on occasion. But when you land these on a broadside, anything that is on the receiving end will have a difficult time with it. I mean, just ask that Ohio, who was broadside to us only momentarily. So the Vermont is a good ship, but I think it's one that not everybody is going to enjoy, mostly down to the slow speed and down to the fact that this is a gigantic, bulky target that can eat a lot of damage. People are going to be tricked into thinking that this is somehow a tank. They're going to go out and try to tank with it, and they're going to be sorely disappointed. This is a mid to long range sort of sniping battleship that you slowly take into positions where you can access broadsides, and then you punish those broadsides. That's the essence of the Vermont. I'm going to try to play it a lot more. I've actually got another game to show you on Two Brothers that's kind of amusing, but I think I'll save that for a different day. In any case, I would recommend getting the Vermont Bureau project when it becomes available, I think on February 26th. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.